Hello and welcome to the Lost Pines Workshop. I'm JC Jensen. This is episode 3 of building a classic dresser. So back in episode 2, we finished milling our pieces and gluing the panels together to form the carcass and the top. They've all been cured now for 1 or 2 days, and we're ready to move on. So what I have done to this point is on my joints here that were glued up, I've cleaned off all the glue. After that, I am ready to proceed with making sure that one, they are dead flat, and then milling them to their final dimension. And we'll get more into that here in a bit. But first, let's talk about how I am going to flatten these panels. So what I did, before we get too far, let me explain something right quick in my little chicken scratch drawing here. So imagine this is my panel, right? This is my panel, and we have a concave side, which is the inside, and the convex side. On a joiner, when we run a piece of material across the joiner, we want the concave side down, thereby trimming the edges and working our way up to the high point. And then we can move over to the planer and flatten the other side. In this case, I have placed it on my workbench the same way. Okay, so as this panel that you can see part of here is sitting on top of my workbench up against my bench dogs, I've used my hand plane. Remember, it's got just a slight, ever so slight, I did a good job with my glue up and my milling prior. So it's relatively flat, but it's got just a tiny bit of deviation or hump in the center here. So I took my pencil and I scribbled a bunch of lines all over the top of the surface. And I went over with my panel concave side down and knocked off all the high points. And I verified that simply by using the edge of my plane. If I set my plane up here on edge and I look across from the edge of my board across the center a little bit past, I have no gaps, none, which tells me from here to here is flat. Slide it on over to the other side. That flatness continues all the way across. So I worked on the convex, the high point, and worked my way down to flat. Now this side is perfectly flat. Now that I've achieved that, I will take it over to the planer and plane the opposite side, which is the convex side. Doesn't matter. This side is perfectly flat. I'll run it through the planer and I'll get it to the final thickness dimension that I want, which is 3/4 of an inch. We are just, where are we at? We're just a smidge over 13/16 right now. So I've just got to shave it, just a little more than a 16th off to achieve the thickness that I want. Once I run all these panels, I've already planed all of these, hand planed them all. I didn't want to bore you with watching me push a hand plane. So I'm going to finish running all these through my planer, cleaning off the other side and getting the final thickness, and then I'm going to dimension them. That'll be coming up shortly. I'm going to start with the top, because one thing I haven't shown you, we're in episode 3 yet, but I haven't shown you the plan. What am I building? Well, I'm going to show you what I'm working with, and then you can see how I'm going to think, problem solve through the process to get everything to go together the way that I envision it, because it's pretty much a vision. It's not a real plan. So here's what I'm working with right now for my plan. I said I don't have. Well, this is kind of it. So here on the right, we have the rough sketch showing the total height that we want, the depth front to back, 18 inches. That's in material. Some 4-inch feet on the bottom. Then over here, this our client has written down that she wants a total height of 4 feet, total width of 38 inches, and then I annotated a depth of 18 inches, as I said here. The details, the very top piece, which is underneath the paper, she wants this double cove detail on the top piece. Across the front, 2 drawers at the top, 3 at the bottom, and then we have some rough dimensions here for the drawer sizes as far as the depth, top to bottom. What I am doing, or what I'm preparing to do now, as I've gotten, if I can zoom this back out. There we go. So this is the top, right? The finished top, where this is the front edge, back edge, and then the length. Right now it's like 43 inches long and 18 and a half in width. So what I'm going to do, I've already got the front edge square, right? And we are perfectly flat. So I'm going to rip this down to 18 and about 1/32. I like to leave about a 32nd of an inch and finish my edges with a hand plane. I'm going to rip it on the table saw, finish the edge with a hand plane so that I know it's perfectly flat and it's square. Then I'm going to put it on a sled and cut it to length. So let's take a look at how that goes. Okay, so we're here at the table saw, my favorite tool, right? As many of you already know, a couple things I'm going to check. One, I'm not going to rely on the gauges or the marking tools here to ensure that my setup is correct. I'm going to check it. So I do most all of the cutting that I do here at the table saw is rough cuts. Like I said just a minute ago, I want to finish this final edge with a hand plane. You can do a finish cut with this, but you know it's the finished edge. I don't want any tool marks, and oftentimes the saw blade itself is going to leave a tool mark. So I leave that little fraction extra and just shave it off with a plane. So back to my saw. All right, so I'm going to ensure my blade here, I'm using a alternating bevel combination blade. Like I said, most of my cuts are considered rough. I'm going to finish it with the plane, like I said. But I'm going to ensure that's what I'm using. And I'm going to ensure, because this edge, the front edge, I've already planed and it is perfectly flat and square. That's what's going to run against the fence. And as long as my blade is perfectly 90 degrees, which I verified with my square, and my fence is clean and parallel to the blade, then when I run this board through here, the front and the back edge will be parallel and clean. And then I'll just take the plane and clean it off, make it perfect. Right on? There's where we are. All right, so let's cut this. Okay, so I've cross-cut the top to length. I wanted to make a note here. So you see I'm using what we call a sled. Again, many of you may already know what this is, but for those that don't, a sled allows us to make sure that we cut perfect 90 degree angle, right? So I wanted this edge that I just cross-cut perfectly 90 degrees to the front of my panel. Now this sled is a little small for this panel. I have a larger panel saw, but I was a little lazy. So what you see that I've done here is I've just grabbed a couple of clamps. And the purpose of the clamps, which are about an inch away from where the blade passes, the purpose of these clamps is just to help me hold the workpiece down flat on the sled itself. If I'd have used my full-size sled, that wouldn't have been necessary. But again, I was lazy. So I used the clamps to hold it down. I ensured that it was perfectly flat against the back fence here, which is 90 degrees to the blade. I cut one end, measured down the length that I wanted, plus the 32nd, and I've trimmed this off. So now I can go back and plane these edges to make everything nice and perfect and square and flat. Right on. So there we are. I'm going to do the same thing to side panels and the sub top and sub bottom, and we'll go from there.